house in my mind, and when I saw this house I thought, this is my house. Instead of making statements, I can't, I started asking questions. What if I could? So every morning I drew out my house, and so all I saw was the sun over the top of the building. I'd even drawn a private jet, and I would write joy, happiness, peace, love, and 3 weeks later we were in the house. But it was about 3 months later that I realised, oh, the sun is exactly where I drew it. There's a private airport not so far away, so there's private jets that literally go past. The stables are exactly where I drew it, and room for 5 cars, there's room for 10 cars. And so thinking into results is not a program, it's a way of life. So that is proper manifestation. Here's the thing, you're doing it every day, except you tend to bring the things you don't want because you worry, and then you doubt yourself, and then you get all anxious. And what we learn is to bring you back to centre, so that then you can go in whatever direction you want to go. Hello, hello, hello. It is so good to have you on here. I'm going to get straight to the point because I appreciate your time. So what we're going to talk about here is the GPS to results. Listen, if anything that you to take a good look at it and actually see, well, what will give us results? There's no point in doing anything just to get the same result, or even 1%, 2%, even a 10% rise in what we're doing. We want 100%. We want 500%. Does that sound good to you? Whether this is for you or for your team, I want you to have results. This is not about a program. This is about you having results. So the 3 things I'm going to talk about in the GPS are goals, paradigms, and self-image. And each one of them is important. Now, you know, and I know that you've set goals before, but why don't they work? Why do, say, some of your team get results, but some of them don't get results? Everybody's had the same training. How come you've done the same qualifications as somebody else and they've got results and you haven't got results? That's what we want to get to the crux of here. Are you ready? Let's get ourselves started here. So first of all, I want to say that it's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. This statement I have said over and over again. I didn't quite get it when Sandy Gallagher said this, but I absolutely understand it now. You see, we think we are one person. We've got this story going on in our head, and you are so much more, so much more. And I remember the first manager who pointed that out to me. I will never forget him, for he changed the trajectory of my life. I absolutely hold, my hand up to that guy. And listen, fear stops a lot of people, especially with, for you who's coming on here now. I know that you have got a positive attitude. Well, so did I. But I didn't realize that I could have a positive attitude in my conscious mind, but actually I was coming from lack. That is one of the key statements I want you to remember here. You can have a positive mental attitude, but you can come from lack. And I did 15 years in sales. And let me tell you, I could put on the most positive attitude, but I would have doubted everything that I did. And even when I didn't doubt it, I would doubt it after. So I remember Peggy McCall saying to me, Peggy McCall, you'll learn about her in a minute, about making excuses or making money, Sheena. And I realized that I had every excuse under the sun, all valid, but they weren't getting me results. What excuses have you got? They're all valid. I'm not knocking any excuse, but are they getting you results? Because there is only now. There isn't later. There isn't tomorrow. There isn't next week. I'll get it when. That's all procrastination. There is fear literally underwriting all of that. And that's what we want to have a look at now. And everything takes a decision. You'll see about that in a minute too. So this is for you if you want results and you want to end the excuses, whether it's for you or for your team, or perhaps even that you want to make the best even better. Are you already getting results? You're just hitting a bit of a wall and you want to get more results. We're always growing. We're always growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. So I guess we can take your pick as to what you want to do today. It's not for you if you're not 100% serious about change. Free webinars do not get you results. I will say that right now. So if you want results from this webinar, you may get them for a week. You may get them for a couple of weeks. I mean, great for you if you're the 1% who literally gets this information straight away and you're off. Absolutely great for you. Are you prepared to do the work on yourself? Listen, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Everybody would be doing it. We're not looking for a get rich quick, although I do have some of my clients who have literally within the first month got results. I myself, when I studied this material, within the first 3 weeks, pulled in 40K from zero. That's not bad for 3 weeks work, is it? Once you invest in yourself, and that's time and money. If we keep studying free things, what are we saying to the universe? And if you got a notebook and pen ready, stop this video now if you haven't got a notebook and pen. There's also a workbook in here as well. If you look down there, you'll see a workbook, and you can use that. Go print it out, go have it up, but just get something to write things down. So let me just give you a little bit of a background to me. This is Bob Proctor. Who is this man? So he started off at The Secret. That's where people mainly know him from, although he'd done a lot of work before then, because The Secret's only out about 15 years. And I knew of this work, and I studied for the last 12 years over and over and over again. And I had seen the work of Bob Proctor. And I just knew one day I was going to meet him. I didn't know I would actually stand beside him. So as one of his consultants, I'm very, very proud to say that I worked alongside him, and he was my mentor. So when people say the law of attraction, what we're talking about here is the science behind results. The science behind results, where we've taken literally science and theology and put it together, and they're saying the same thing. It's literally like the center of town, and there's so many different roads that you can get there. It all ends up in the same way. So how did I get here? How did I get to interview Bob Proctor as well before that event? How did I end up in a movie where Bob Proctor, I was working on the movie, and Bob Proctor was in this movie as well, How Thoughts Become Things. And then we were all set up to be on a movie next year to come out. I know Bob has passed away, but he's still here in the spiritual sense, in the energetic sense. And his wisdom is now a complete legacy that we're all taking forward. And I was in this movie as well. And now I've started my own academy. Where does all this come from? You know, wealth or anything in life is basically a team sport. So Bob Proctor helped me up, and I want to help you up, and I want to help teams up. All the work that I do is about results. And it's not just results about working harder. My goodness, it's not about working harder at all. And it's not even about working smarter. It's about truly understanding who you are and how you can make your subconscious do all the work for you. I mean, basically it is anyway. We are just 2% conscious and 98% subconscious, and that's what's doing the work. But we try to do everything with our 2%, and we are exhausted. Teams are exhausted. And all it takes is a decision. A decision. I want to help you make that, just like I've been helped. So this is my life now. I love to travel the world now that we're out of COVID, travel the world. And even though there was COVID, in between times, I would still get out there as well. I love to play polo. I love to live my life. But there was a period of time 3 years ago when literally everything just went completely flatlined. I had the house, I had the cars, I had the job, I had my own business, I had my kids, although they're 23 and 29 now, and horses, dogs, and cats. And I completely flatlined about 3 years ago. And I ended up in a 2 up, 2 down with my wonderful partner, Wolfgang. Don't know what happened, although I do know what happened. At the time, I didn't know what happened. When I started to study thinking into results with Bob Proctor, I could see my thought process that actually brought me to that place. And, admitting that you brought yourself somewhere was really quite hard as well. But I admitted what I did. And even from here, this was my desk that I was using. And it was from here that I actually interviewed Bob Proctor from. So how did I do that? How did I go to having everything I ever wanted to nothing? I mean, nothing. How did that happen? Well, if I'm honest, and you're honest as well, our thoughts did it. Our thoughts did everything. Everything. I know exactly the thought process that brought me there. So what did I do? I decided to change. And I decided to go and work with Bob Proctor. And I sat there and I listened to him. And I had a number of 1.8 million in my mind. And I'd been to see the house. I saw the house and that's what I had. He said to create such goals that you thought were just completely silly. And to me at that time, 1.8 million was just ridiculous. But we went to see the houses. Now, I didn't tell Bob my number, but he said to me, Sheena, if you do this, 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 and this, you'll make 1.8 million. And I went, my goodness, how did you know my number? And he goes, I didn't. He says, you had a fantasy. And now we've had a conversation and I've just made that fantasy a theory. So now you have to make it a fact. Wow. So I didn't like writing out affirmations, have to be truthful to you. So I decided to draw. You may not know anything about what is drawn on this piece of paper here beside me, but it is my house with the sun, with cars, with a boat, with bikes, with stables, with the private jets. Everything is in here. And I drew it for 6 months. I was not in a good place, let me tell you. And this was the only thing that gave me salvation. I could really lose myself whenever I was drawing this. But 6 months later, we were in the house. I have to smile. I'll never forget the journey that took me here. But I want to get into the real results for you so that you know what I did and what the process was and the things that I changed. So let's get straight into that. And by understanding where this information comes from. This is 60 years worth of Bob study, but this is information that has come from the Bible and from science, and particularly in this man here on the left-hand side, Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie was the richest man in the world at his time. And he would give his money away, and couldn't understand why it kept coming back again. And so he sent the next guy, Napoleon Hill, out to interview, and he interviewed 25,000 people over 20 years. Now, incidentally, when I talk about decision, whenever Andrew Carnegie asked Napoleon to do this, he had on a stopwatch 60 seconds. And if he hadn't said yes in 60 seconds, the offer was off the table. He made the decision in 29 seconds. So the next guy, Earl Nightingale, he took this information. So the book was Think and Grow Rich that was completed. Incidentally, Outwitting the Devil is another book that came out about 10 years ago. They weren't going to send it out, but it is a good book. And that's where you can see yourself there. I couldn't see myself in Think and Grow Rich. I do now. I understand the work now through this man, Bob Proctor, who took Earl Nightingale was the first man to really take personal development to another level. And Bob Proctor studied directly with him. And I have now studied directly with Bob Proctor. There is great lineage in this information that I'm giving you, and I want you to take this seriously. You may think you've heard this before, but if you're here watching this, it's clearly something you want to hear again, and I may say something different, or you may just pick up on something different on yourself. Results always tell the truth. If you're looking at your results and you do not like them, and no matter what you do, you still seem to come back to this place, then listen to this information, because your thinking is causing your results. We want our thinking to cause our results, not our results to cause our thinking, and get it the right way around. Are your results causing your thinking, or is your thinking causing the results? So just some examples of success so you get the idea, just the possibility of this information. And you want to stay on because I've got something for you at the end. So Peggy McCall, she wanted a new house. She spoke to Bob, and Bob says, well, make 1 million look small. So she did. Can you make 1 million look small? She's a multimillionairess based off this information. Kim Calvert was a nurse. 35K was all she'd earned. And then within 3 years was a millionaire. She's a multimillionaire right now. One of my clients here, She was made redundant from her company, and she literally bought the company. She started studying this work. She bought the company, and within 4 months, she'd created 200K's worth of profit. Brian had wanted to leave his corporate job for 20 years. And within 6 months, he had left his job and made his annual salary monthly. He is now triple that. Let me tell you. We can be even simpler. We can just go, somebody wanted a car. 3 months later, they had the car. This car had been on their vision board for 2 years. And within 3 months of studying this work properly. I mean, I have got other examples of companies that I've worked with that have, 200,000 was all they'd earned in a year. That was the most of their profits had been. And within 8 months had been on a million a month. Bob Proctor himself worked with Prudential, and they were 163rd back in the day in the rankings. And within that year, they'd gone to 5th. And then with the second year, they'd gone to number 1. So please listen to this information. There's something going on that you want to hear about. So this graph that we've got here is like if you're in a team. And so you've got some people who are completely engaged, some people who are like, take it or leave it. And you've got people who are actively engaged. We do not ignore the people who are actively disengaged, because they are pulling down that main pile in the middle. And we don't want that. You're only as good as your weakest employee. That employee, just the energy isn't for that company. Either find where they are energetically suited in the company, or they leave. But here's the thing. This is also us. So we have a front end that we show people. We have a part of us that goes, yeah, well, it depends on the circumstance, whether I'm in or out. And then we've got part of us that is actively sabotaging ourselves. And so how many times have you ignored that? You cannot ignore it. You're only as weak as your weakest, you're only as strong as your weakest vibration. What do I mean by that? How do you react when things don't go your way? Do you huff and puff, anger, frustration, lacking confidence, whatever it is? That's what I'm talking about. That's what we want to get at, because that is driving your results. That is holding you in place. We don't want to go looking for it. We have a unique way. We have a code that we want to do. You see, my background is computer programming. That's how I started. So computer programming, used to program the computers. I would teach people how to program the computers themselves, and then I did myself out of a job. Nobody needed me. I do that with people now. I help you code you. We've got literally 12 pieces of code that you put into yourself over and over and over again, so that you can dislodge that code that is holding you in place. It shows you your error. And when we can dislodge the error, then you know how to recode your code, not somebody else's, your code. So if it's for you, yourself, then you reprogram yourself with your code. If it's a company, you reprogram your employees with the new code. But we need to see the error first, your errors, so we know exactly what is going on. I used to think that it was people didn't have the right goals, but then I realized that they didn't know where they were. I mean, being brutally honest with yourself where you were. So with me, what happened with this was whenever I moved from computer programming into sales and marketing, and then I moved into strategic management, I was not on the leadership board once. But as soon as I understood my code, I went to number 1 within 6 months, and I was top 10 of a number 1 pharmaceutical company. That's how great this information is. That's why you want to be listening to this. Keep listening right to the end. So, we live in a energetic world, vibration world. There's wavelengths. I mean, you've heard this say, you've said this yourself, we're not on the same wavelength. So we've all got a bit of a tune going on, and maybe your tune doesn't resonate with my tune. It's just the way it is. And when we do resonate, it works really well. And so your results are on a certain wavelength. We know this from a phone. If you want to get in touch with me, you'd need to know my number. You'd need to know my exact code so that you could get in touch with me. Otherwise, you can't ring me. We know the same with radio stations. We tune in, we tune out. Listen, We are like radio stations. We are sending and receiving information all the time. But if we're not awake to that information, we're not quite sure what we sent out. And we get stuff back. And if we're not sure of what we sent out, we may not recognize what came back. So our results are on a certain wavelength. So let's take a look at those results in comparison to where our goal is. But I don't want to just set any goal. I want you to set a fantasy goal. Yes, even in corporate. I want you to set. Each person who's working for you or with you has their own ideal vision of life. If we can tap into that for each and every one person, my goodness, then we are completely bought into the company that we're working for. Or perhaps you want to start your own business. It has to be something really, really silly. Like for me, the fantasy goal, 1.8 million. Let me tell you now, my partner, Wolfgang, he's now working on a set of hotels for 45 million. And would you believe I even said to him that I actually thought that number was too small? And he said, can you just let me get this done, Sheena, before we go to the 100 million? Because he's already got the ideas for 100 million. And the money's there, but he's getting it working at 45 million, first of all. You see, before, maybe 3 years ago, if we'd have spoken like that, we'd have gone, oh my goodness, how are we ever going to do that? That's never going to happen. But I know this stuff works. If we start with fantasy, then eventually the theory will come and then we make it into a fact. That's how we rise. That's how we get the quantum leaps. And that's how we get results. But we must be completely bought in 100% with a decision that I want that goal. I want it. But what do? We say, yes, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. But then we think from our results. Do you see that? It's just like me going from, yes, yes, I want to listen to Radio 1. But then I'm hitting the station and I'm like, no, 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 I'm still on Classic FM. Do you see that? This is important. What radio station are you tuned into when you're doing your thinking? If you're thinking from your results, you can only ever get your results and you're going to work very, very hard. Do you see that? You're going to work very hard at this level when your goal is at this level and you can see it. And you can see it, but you're working hard here. This is what we must get over. And this is a committed decision, which means I am working at this level. I will think at this level. There's something else driving this, but this is the first thing we must do is just go, this is happening no matter what. And when you can tap in to that in yourself and that in your employees or your team for something that they want, that they are willing to do something for the company, or you're willing to do something for somebody else, you tap into your own motivation. Wow. You will get results. So why do we need to come from a vision? So this is the Shard, tallest building in Europe, in London. And so if you can imagine, I took you to the top of the building and we're overlooking everything. And you told me, Sheena, you just go there. Do you see the building? Oh, yes, I see it now. Okay, if I take a left and a right, okay, I'll be there. That's absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. I can see that. But then if I go down to the ground floor and I forget my vision, oh my goodness, I don't know where to go. I'm banging into everybody else and I ask somebody else and then they tell me and I can't see it. I've lost the vision. But if I walk on the ground level with my vision in mind, I will get there. Do you see that? Do you see the importance of that? What we need here is a paradigm shift, not more knowledge. It is not more knowledge, although we use knowledge, but it's not the knowledge that is giving you the result. It is you reprogramming you. You reprogramming you to get the results. And it's a paradigm shift. It's a program shift. We've been programmed to think from the outside in. And it is about thinking from the inside out. Just look at some of these prosperity affirmations. I'm so happy and grateful now money flows easily to me from multiple sources, increasing amounts in a continuous way. But how often are you saying, oh, I'm never going to get this done? Oh, I wonder what will happen here. And oh, this will never work. Or I hope it works. Rather than so powerful affirmations like this, I deserve all the wealth that is already mine. I deserve that goal. Or I hope I'll get it. Mere hope or wish won't get it. These are decision statements, decision affirmations. Every thought you're saying is an affirmation. What's your constant conversation in your head? So what's a paradigm? A mental program that is almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. Almost all of our behavior is habitual. You get up in the morning, you do the same thing, etc., etc., etc. There's no thinking involved. You just do it. Thank goodness your heart beats. I mean, who's breathing you right now? Who is breathing you right now? So what thoughts are you thinking that you can't hear? I've heard so many of my clients come back to me saying, Sheena, I did not hear myself say this. 3 years later. You know, Bob Proctor's been working on this stuff until his death. And he said he was only scratching the surface. I totally understand him because I hear things in me that I did not hear before. I hear them now. And they're the things, that is the employee that's not engaged at all, actively disengaged. And it's only because there was certain programming that went on. So where did the paradigms come from? Where did the programming come from? Well, whenever you were a child, up until the age of 7, you're not really consciously aware. You're sort of reacting to everything. And your conscious mind is wide open to the subconscious. And so anything your parents said, anything that was said around you, anything was programmed into you. You also came with genetic programming. Generations down the line, maybe great Aunt Betty had money problems. Think of the war period, the lack that was going through there that has now come through in this generation. But then we carried on the programming with our schools, with our work, with ourselves. Do you know who I found out was the worst programmer? Me. I, even as a salesperson, and 15 years of being in sales, did not feel like a salesperson in any shape or form. So how was I ever going to sell anything? Well, I was a good liar to myself, a great liar to myself. Thought I had it sorted. But results are everything. If you don't have the results, and don't use the excuse, oh, well, it's not meant to be. No, that's just an excuse. Just an excuse. It's about making a committed decision to yourself and that you're worthy and that you want these results for you or for your team or for both or for your family, for generations to come, to change this trajectory. 40 years, 40 hours a week, to end up on 40% of what you couldn't survive on in the first place. Who thought that was a good idea? Who thinks that 1% pay rises, 2% pay rises are a good idea? But we get caught up in our own security, don't we? We get caught up in our own security. There's a story I remember about a stallion who got caught up. The farmer caught him and he was going mad in the field, trying to kick the fences down, but nothing would work. But every day at the same time, the farmer would put out some hay and some food and some water. And eventually he settled down and he started to eat the food, same time, every day. And eventually the farmer was able to stroke him. He was able to ride him. But then one day the rest of the stallions came and they broke down the fence and they were shouting at him, you're free now, you're free. The gates were open. The stallion thought, yes. He ran towards the gate And then he stopped and he looked at the farmer who was putting out the food and the hay and the water. And he thought, I don't know where my food's coming from next. And he turned round and he stayed. You see, when we choose security, we fence ourselves in. Step outside, make a decision. I promise you it will be worth it. You see, your paradigm, because if we're thinking, remember that previous one, if we're thinking from results, we can only see those results. But if we think from our goal, we can see so much further. Our paradigm is controlling our perception, our use of time. So many people tell me they're busy. You're not busy. You're not as busy as you think you are. Your creativity, your effectiveness, your logic, all of that is controlled by your paradigm. What's your paradigm? What's your employee's paradigm? Just look at the results and you'll see. There's two ways to change a paradigm. Constant spaced repetition of ideas, and that's where the programming comes in. That's where I come in. With the program Thinking into Results. 12 steps of reprogramming you, the basics. And if we do not get the basics right, then we are building on a platform of more knowledge, more knowledge, more knowledge, more knowledge, more knowledge. And we are literally weighing ourselves down with knowledge. And then we beat ourselves up because why haven't I got the result whenever I should have the results? But also an emotional impact. Guess what? I've got results for that as well. By utilizing Gallup's strengths, I can give you an emotional impact in a 1-hour call that can totally change your paradigm of who you think you are. Remember what I said. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. I can show you a way of how you've been thinking, how this great information of the world comes into your brain, and how you think. Imagine knowing that. Imagine knowing and having aha moments of your whole life and going, oh my goodness, that's why this happened. That's why I thought that. Imagine knowing this for your team. Imagine knowing how your team think. Imagine the results you could get from there because you know what gives them energy, but you know what takes away energy. And you know what gives them energy. So what we've discussed so far have been goals and paradigms. So basically goals, really setting silly, silly goals. Silly goals. And we show you how to work through that and the different levels of the goals and why it works. Paradigms. What's blocking you? Why don't you get why when working hard and getting more qualifications and more training doesn't necessarily work? Why the most successful people can't even explain to you why they're successful. You see, Bob studied this for 60 years. He knew what it took. He studied it and he put it into 12 lessons, the basic lessons. And so here's a very key component here about your self-image, holding the image of who you are or who you want to be. I was always taught, dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. And I always turned up in my best, always. And at the ripe old age of 25, I was assistant hospital manager of a small hospital in Wales. How did that happen? I became an intelligent follower. I just learned to do what I was taught to do. I was Irish dancing champion at the age of 10 because I did exactly what I was taught to do over and over and over and over and over and over again. I hardly even remember it, but I do remember winning Pony Club Camp the same year, and I do not remember winning the Northern Irish Dancing Championship. I was completely programmed to do that. So either way, you'll get results with your heart as to what you want to do, or with consistent spaced programming. So who do you think you are? Let me give you an idea as to how strong this is. Whenever I was 19, so I was told that I wasn't academically minded by my mum, and said that I should be a secretary. So I became a secretary, a medical secretary. And then I decided, well, I'll join the RAF. I want to do some traveling. I'll join the RAF as a secretary. I went along and I did a IQ test, and it came out with 160. And they said to me, they'd interviewed me, and they said, we want you to come back for officer training. We want to pull you straight through for officer training. And I was like, I only came to be a secretary. That's all I am. I'm only a secretary. I couldn't see this. I couldn't see. In fact, I was embarrassed. I thought they'd got the wrong results. And so when I left there, I never went back, and I didn't tell anybody. I was embarrassed because my self-image was of a secretary. I'd been told that over and over again. I'd been told that I didn't have any brains. Or should I say that I wasn't academically minded. And yet here I am today, that I've got a degree in computer science. I studied to master's level in business, coaching, NLP, hypnotherapy, Reiki. So who do you think you are? Who have you been told you are? Who are you pretending in your conscious mind you're 2% here? Whereas in the 98% here, something different is going on. Because it's here that's getting the results. Here's just an example of a self-image change. So this is my son at not a very good time in his life. Without going into all the details, I just want to show you the dramatic change of 4 months. Now, my son at this time could not even walk down the road. He couldn't take his dog for a half a mile walk down the road. And 4 months later, he was number one salesperson in a job. And cycled 30 miles at that time, actually, I just remembered. There was a self-image change as to who he thought he was. This is so powerful. This is so powerful. And this is what's driving your results. See who you are. See who you truly are. Rather than the conversations and the programs that we're too busy looking outside, that we get confused and we forget who we really are. Again, it takes a committed decision. Are you ready to make a committed decision yourself? Make excuses or get results. It is a decision. I told you to wait to the end. I'm offering you a free call. A free call. The link is above and below this presentation right now. Book a call with me. I want to have that conversation with you. We can help you. Are you ready? Are you ready to make that decision? I'd love to have a conversation with you. You tell me what you want, and I'll show you how to get it. I'll see you soon. And here's my story one more time. Goodbye now. I had a house in my mind, and when I saw this house, I thought, this is my house. Instead of making statements, I can't, I started asking questions. What if I could? So every morning I drew out my house, and so all I saw was the sun over the top of the building. I'd even drawn a private jet, and I would write joy, happiness, peace, love, and 3 weeks later we were in the house. But it was about 3 months later that I realised, the sun is exactly where I drew it. There's a private airport not so far away, so there's private jets that literally go past. The stables are exactly where I drew it, and room for 5 cars, there's room for 10 cars. And so thinking into results is not a program, it's a way of life. So that is proper manifestation. Here's the thing, you're doing it every day, except you tend to bring the things you don't want because you worry, and then you doubt yourself, and then you get all anxious. And what we learn is to bring you back to center so that then you can go in whatever direction you want to go.